Bob, would you do the pledge? Bob, will you do the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. You all have a copy of the agenda. Is there any issue with the agenda, or shall we approve it at this point?
Yeah, I have an issue with the agenda. So in taking up the agenda, I have a motion to make, which is a motion to table the agenda.
Could you speak up a little bit?
I'm sorry.
It used to be, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. I don't know, if you could speak up a little louder, that's all I have.
Yeah. I make a motion to table this agenda and all that's on it. It's come to my attention that one of the members of the study commission may not be a resident of the county. As you know, under Idaho Code 315102, one of the qualifications for membership in the commission under the statute is that the person, quote, shall have resided in the county 1 year preceding his appointment. The Attorney General recently had an occasion to write about that residency requirement in regards to trusteeship membership on the NIC board, and made clear that generally when a qualification for candidacy is created by statute, that qualification must be maintained throughout an elected official's tenure in office. In some, it's presupposed that an elected official retain the qualifications to hold office and remain a qualified elector, which necessarily includes the maintenance of residency in Idaho. Idaho law, this is from the Attorney General, quote, Idaho law appears to operate on the honor system. Office holders will be honest and forthcoming when they move and faithfully step down when they no longer possess the qualifications for office. It's come to my attention that a member of the study commission is no longer a resident, that an investigation by the clerk's office has been initiated, and that the prosecutor's office has also been made aware of that. Since that person would be participating in a vote on not only the agenda, but all the other items that appear on the agenda tonight, I submit that it is inappropriate for the study commission to proceed until such time as we know what the outcome of an investigation that is underway into the residency status of that individual is. That may take some time. The person would have 21 days to respond to an inquiry from the clerk's office about their residency status. And so I would submit that to move things forward, if that person wants to wait, that's fine. The other only alternative to speed things up would be for that member to step back, perhaps resign, and let their alternate take their place. That's the motion. I'd ask for someone to second it.
I second.
Discussion.
The prosecutor's office was asked today about that same issue. Prosecutor's office said that there is nothing in the statute that would preclude her participating. That's the position that we have right now.
That is the decision of the prosecutor's office. Was it written to you? Was it shared with us?
No, it was verbal.
Can you bring to our attention some of the facts that were dispositive in the decision?
Certainly. The issue became one of statute. 315102 says a member of a study commission shall be at least 21 years of age and shall have resided in the county 1 year preceding his appointment. 315103 says the term of an office of a commission member initiates upon his appointment and concludes 30 days after the issuance of the commission's final report. To the best of my knowledge, through the best of their research, there is nothing else that suggests that a commission member needs to resign just because they're no longer a resident.
Do we want someone making a decision for this county who doesn't even live here and isn't going to suffer for the consequences? I mean, doesn't that person think that it's a duty, a moral duty, to not remain on the committee?
Kristen was a member of this commission when we voted the last time. She has given her position. She voted to support the report as it existed. She knows what it is. She knew what it was at the time.
That doesn't answer my question.
I don't have a problem with her voting.
Chairman? We do.
Yes.
I don't agree that that motion is applicable, but assuming it was, it certainly is premature at this point. On another, as far as I know, unwritten prosecuting attorney's opinion, it was stated that there was some question about whether there should have been a public meeting for the discussion or submittal of comments by the 9 voting members of this commission to the 3 people who drafted that report. That is the only thing that's an issue here. Kristen Wing was part of that 3-person committee, and if there's any discussion of those comments, or whether they apply to the report, I think that would be the purpose of this meeting. At the conclusion of that, if the report hasn't changed, I don't even know that we need to vote on it. But assuming we do, at that point, we discuss whether she is still qualified to vote, in my opinion.
Respectfully, Phil, you have to take a vote on the agenda. If she is no longer a resident of the county and, not eligible to be on the commission, she shouldn't be voting on the agenda. That's the point.
Statute says she is a member of the commission until 30 days after we have filed the report. Unless you've got another statute that says differently.
I think that
The Supreme Court overrules the statute.
So, Dave, you're saying that the Attorney General is wrong in their position that, this is a quote. Generally, when a qualification for candidacy is created by statute, that qualification must be maintained throughout an elected official's tenure in office. Kristen is not elected,
No, she
for
is
sure.
not.
She's appointed by an elected official. Her qualification for sitting on this commission is that she had been, 1 year preceding her appointment, a resident of the county. And if she is no longer a resident of this county, I hardly see that someone who is a public official, that means an Idaho public official who no longer resides here, is legitimately a member of this commission. That just does not follow that she can sit here. I know what you're talking about in the subsequent provision about the term lasts for a year. The governor, he has, what, a 4-year term? So are you saying when the governor leaves and maybe moves to Georgia or something, that the governor can remain the governor of the state of Idaho? Or one of the Kootenai County commissioners, or someone on the NIC when they move to California and no longer maintain residency here, even though they have a term, that they should just continue to sit and make public policy, because that's what we're doing, even though it's a recommendation. You are making public policy in a position. You are a public official. Someone who is no longer a resident of this county, much less the state, should not be sitting in a position making public policy for Idaho. I see the point you're trying to make, but it doesn't square with the reality. A person's no longer resident, shouldn't be making public policy for this county.
Your quote from the Attorney General states that a person who is a candidate, she is not a candidate. She is not an elected official. And if you recall, the situation you're talking about came up with NIC, and the state refused to ask him to step down. They continued to let him serve in office, continue to make decisions for NIC in spite of the issue. You have one position within its NIC and you have another position here. You have flip-flopped on this one.
What do you mean flip-flopped?
This group was trying to keep Michael Barnes in office at NIC in order to achieve the objectives. They, in spite of the fact that he was no longer a resident, it was said that they could not ask him to resign. That was the position came out of the state. He was not asked to resign. He chose to do so later. That's a different issue. Kristen is in the same boat. He was an elected official. And what you have said from the Attorney General did apply to him. It doesn't apply to Kristen.
And so you're saying that the prosecuting office has given you opinion that this person you identified as Kristen is qualified to sit in her status on this commission?
The prosecuting attorney's office was asked about this situation. They were asked if she should resign. They said they do not find anything in statute to require her resignation. They did not give us a written position, but that was their response. If you have something in statute that says she needs to resign, what you quoted from the Attorney General's office is applicable to an elected official, but you're extrapolating in order to take it over to an appointed one.
And do you speak for the prosecuting attorney?
I don't speak for the prosecuting attorney, so I guess the question is directed to you, Dave. Are you speaking for the prosecuting attorney?
No, the prosecuting attorney was asked for an opinion and he refused to grant one. He was asked if we should remove her from office and he refused to say so.
So,
That sounds like no opinion. It doesn't sound like the opinion that you originally stated.
Then no, what was stated was the statute. The statute 5102, a member of the study commission shall be at least 21 years of age and shall reside in the county 1 year preceding his appointment. 5103, the term of office of a commissioner member initiates upon his appointment and concludes 30 days after the issuance of the commission's report. Article 4 of the bylaws of this study commission, membership, Section 2, the term of office of the commissioners and alternates shall initiate upon appointment and shall terminate 30 days after the issuance of the commission's final report.
I thought you said there was an opinion from the prosecuting attorney, and now you said there was no opinion. So I just
I'm
thought
saying
that-
he has said that there is nothing to remove her from office.
I thought he said that he issued no opinion.
He has said there's nothing to remove her from office.
there is no,
No opinion also.
There is no written opinion.
I don't think he's given an opinion anyway.
Go ahead,
I'm
Brian.
confused by your comments.
so Dave, did you say that there's no procedure under Idaho law for removing her from her position on the study commission? Is that what you mean?
It's my understanding that that may be an accurate representation. I don't know for sure.
Correct.
Because the Attorney General pointed to, there is no express procedure that they could find for this, that it is a matter for, A, the clerk to investigate the residency of someone, which my understanding is that has been initiated, and that a prosecutor could initiate action based upon that investigation. And so what I'm laying out is that investigation has been initiated, that it is up to the prosecutor upon the conclusion of that with the information provided to make a decision about what to do. That results in the removal of the person from the voter rolls. As I understand it, this member is currently registered to vote in this county. Her husband is no longer registered to vote in the county, and the registration record indicates that that individual has moved, the spouse has moved. That individual, I understand, no longer maintains a business in the county. Calls to the business have gone unanswered. The presence of that business in terms of a Facebook page are no longer in existence, whereas it did exist. And the property has been sold, at which that commission member previously resided. So, until the clerk's office investigates this and refers to the prosecuting attorney, I do not believe that the prosecuting attorney really has the, basis for making a decision here about whether there is a mechanism to remove or not. And that's why I brought this up, because I think it's premature to proceed with acting on this agenda with that member present and this issue arising, but also to move through this and have discussion with that member here if indeed they're not really a resident. I do not agree with your viewpoint that a person who sits on a commission about determining a recommendation on the optional forms of government was no longer a resident but needed to be one for a year preceding their appointment to sit on this thing, that somehow it defies, credulity to think that that person, once they are no longer have their residency status, should be sitting on this commission making policy, even if it's just a recommendation, much less writing kind of the lead author on the recommendation report. That they should be sitting here doing that in good faith. And, I think this is a question they should have brought up. It's up to that individual. The Attorney General advises person should be, forthcoming. Questions like this come up. They should raise them with the chairman first. I presume if that happened, you would have brought it to our attention earlier. But the fact of the matter is, I don't think they should, that this should proceed. I think this should be tabled until such time as a decision is rendered by the clerk and the prosecutor makes a decision. So I would ask for a vote on the motion. You people, we've had some discussion on it, but I leave you to call the vote.
Vote for the motion. The motion is to table this and delay the hearing. Vote in favor of tabling the motion. We have 4 opposed. Dave, you voting?
I'm voting
Okay. We have,
not
even if
table.
we were to exclude Kristen, which I am not doing, we would have a failure of the motion. With Kristen's vote, the motion has failed.
You can't have her vote. Yeah.
Will you hold it down out there? This is for the business of the commission. You can speak later. You can send any kind of an email in you want.
How is it not a conflict of
Respond to
interest?
the public's emails.
How is it not a conflict of interest when this is about Kristen to allow her to vote? Because if it was any one of the 4 of us on the minority vote, if this issue was even in any way provable, we would have been ousted immediately, or there's no way we would have been allowed to vote in that matter. So
That's an
I think
assumption that
it's-
you're making, which is incorrect.
well,
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, sir.
As long as we're appealing to the Attorney General
Turn on your,
and the,
You're turned off there.
as long as the Attorney General is the opinion we're going to, and no one wants to accept the unwritten opinion of our county attorney, whether it's on a public meeting requirement or a residency requirement, I think we ought to discuss or understand what is a public meeting. And the Attorney General says it's a meeting that includes such things as informal gatherings, briefings, and so on. But it says a meeting convening a government body to make a decision, to deliberate. Additionally, a quorum must be present. 3 people is not a quorum. People who are part of this 9 voting member group submit comments or clarifications. And if you look at the comments that were submitted, which are in the public record, they are all minor things. I don't like the word successfully used in reference to a government. A lot of it is even grammatical concerns. Nothing that is substantive to this actual action. Furthermore, the report is nothing more than a report. The policy decision was made prior to that, when 5 of us voted to change the form of government and forward that recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. That's the process we have. Now, all of a sudden, because a person who has sat here with all of us for 10, 11 months has relocated prior to, immediately after everything is approved, this is a major legal concern by some legal people. But whether or not that hearing, that process that led us to accept comments on the report needed to be a public meeting, everyone accepts, oh, it must be. But I haven't seen a written report on that one either. And I disagree with it, and I think the Attorney General agrees with me, and I'm not a lawyer, but I can read. He said, a meeting to deliberate where there is a quorum. Those were not present for the preparation and finalization of that report to be submitted, to be voted on, which was done, and in my opinion, was completed properly.
You misstated the facts. I submitted something to the subcommittee that was arguably substantive, and a decision was made without a quorum.
And it's a serial meeting, Phil. I mean, that was the whole point, when an issue with the concerned citizens about the 5 members, that you could have 2 talk, you could have 1 talk, you could have go to another one, and you have a serial meeting about those topics. That is what the issue is here, and I think that's what the legal ruling is that you've had deliberation, you had discussion with the 3, but incorporating input from other members, that constitutes a serial meeting. And that's why we're back here.
You know, the lack of camaraderie upon this group. Now, we were sent here to perform a community service. It requires a certain amount of intellectual integrity and belief in our community that they have the understanding and the ability to vote on something and decide what should be done. Not the 9 of us, not the people sitting in this room, but the electorate out there. And that we don't want to even, or some of us, don't want to allow that to happen, to me is not right. It is simply wrong under our form of government.
Who cares about the law?
This commission gathered information in full view of the public.
Well-
This commission deliberated and voted on a recommendation in full view of the public. The complaint received was after all decisions have been made in open meetings. The writing subcommittee may have somehow created a quorum, which would require the participation of 5 members. Only 3 members. Thank you. Only 3 members were receiving comments from 1 member at a time, and therefore somehow 3 members plus 1 creates a 5-member quorum. While I do not believe that any violation of open meeting laws occurred, I have agreed to call this meeting for that purpose. As a result, we will discuss motions for entertainments for amendments to the formatting or substantive content of the final report only. Decisions properly reached in full view of the public will not be subject to modification at this meeting. Motions will be entertained for amendments to the formatting or substantive content to the final report only. Decisions properly reached in full view of the public will not be subject to modification at this meeting. The situation is that the writing subcommittee was created after all of this had been done. The writing subcommittee was tasked with finding a way to put together a report that met the statutory requirements to show the discussion, show the information that we had received, to show the decision we had reached, the recommendation we were making. They did not at any time have a 5-member quorum. That was a bit of a stretch to declare that there was a quorum.
This is what the county prosecutor told you?
I'm going based on what the prosecutor said, and that is that sending out the letter is what allowed there to be a quorum so that he could complain about it.
That's hearsay.
I see. So we had a motion that we were voting on, and
We just
in the
voted
midst of
on
this,
it.
I lost track of whether we concluded the vote or.
We just voted on it and it was rejected.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion to approve the agenda in a second. Call for vote. Approve the agenda. Dave, you going to vote on it? Kristen?
Yes, approved.
It is approved.
Ask Inslee first.
What state are you in, Kristen?
Quite frankly, it doesn't matter what state she's in.
Why is she
I have
not
dis-
here?
She should have recused
The
herself.
commission is.
We have
here.
discussed
Why
the
is she not
statutes.
here?
Behave yourself or I will ask you to be removed.
You can remove me, but I'm not
Please.
gonna shut up.
If he won't behave himself, please remove him. Now, moving on. The next item. Next item. We open the discussion to cure potential violations from March 9th meeting. In order to do that, we have the comments that were made for the March 9th meeting. I will read those into the minutes. Comments from Tamara Bateson. What did I miss? Approval of the agenda, announcements, discussion to cure.
Revoke the final report.
Oh,
carry
to revoke, okay.
And then declare it the draft report. for
My
discussion.
apologies, I misread that. To vote to revoke the final approval of the report from March 9th. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second? I think this is 5. Discussion to, it starts out discussion to cure, and that's what I thought we were getting into, but it turns out it's to revoke the final report. Bob made the motion, and I'm waiting for a second. Phil seconded. Call for a vote to revoke. It passes.
I didn't vote. Right.
So it's
8 to 0.
8 to 0.
Yeah, an abstention is not a count. Kristen?
I'm voting with the majority. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have revoked the approval. Now we need to declare the previous final report as the draft for discussion. May I have a motion to do so? I think I'm on 6 right now. Phil has made the motion. Is there a second?
Is this the one that was passed out at the last meeting?
Yes.
Just want to make sure.
I'm sorry, was there a second?
I'll second.
Bob has seconded. Vote to make that the draft. In favor? It looks like Bryant is not to.
In favor.
Bryant again has not voted on that, so it's 8 to 0. Okay, now we're on to 7. Review the previous comments with final draft. I apologize for jumping ahead. Yes. Of what?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that the minutes from our meeting on the 9th were not circulated in hard copy. I think that's what you're presuming to read, the attachment to the meeting minutes?
It's a combination of the comments and the results.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have a hard look copy that they, or I'm sorry, online copy that they can make?
I could send it to Jonathan.
Starting with comments made by Tamara Bateson, page 2, line 14. Comment, public meetings suggest inserting.
For clarity, these page and line number references are not to the copy that was distributed on the 9th. These are relative to the draft that was sent to the
Okay.
entire committee earlier. Yeah.
Looks like I'm losing my copy for the moment so that they can make copies.
Yeah,
So just-
what you're gonna see,
When it's referring to page and line number, this is the original draft that was sent to
the other
everybody,
has
not
information.
the proposed final.
yeah, what you're gonna see is the comment as written and what change was actually made to the document. So you'll be able to follow, you're exactly right, Kurt, the line numbers are not in sync, but you'll be able to see that Bryant asked for successfully to be taken out, and then the comment would say it's been removed. And then where and then in some cases, you'll actually see how the sentence was changed. So it'll give you a good understanding of what was requested and what was actually done. And we'll get you to that in a second.
So should we allow that to happen so we can all follow, or are we just gonna sit
What kind of
here?
time frame are we looking at?
Take a few minutes.
Maybe a 10-minute break?
I think she's saying it's only going to be a minute, but if somebody wants to take a break, we can break for a couple of minutes.
Yeah, I think it's,
It seems a little early for that, though.
we'll probably take another one too.
Kind of depends on the speed of the copier.
Yeah, and
the first page. I'll keep making copies of the
Oh,
other
that's great,
pages,
that's great.
so you guys can start.
Thank you.
Okay. First comment from Tamara Bateson, page 2, line 14. Public meetings suggest inserting comment since all of our meetings were public in the sense of open meeting statutes. Status, inserted the word input. The sentence now reads, 2 meetings were held to get input from Kootenai County residents. Second comment, page 3, line 6. Performed specific administrative seems limiting. They also have executive and interdepartmental policy responsibilities. There was no change made to the document regarding that. Third comment, page 5, lines 22 and 23. Quote, increased bureaucracy and slower responsiveness in the county commissioner's office and in the other 6 offices. Seems to be contradictory with the later strengths section. Sentence change to read. In contrast, the county commissioner's office is administered by a 3-person board with no formalized deputy assistants, resulting in slower responsiveness in the county commissioner's office than in the other 6 offices. Fourth item, page 5, lines 25 through 26. At the expense of their statutory responsibilities for policy development and legislation. Poor wording. Are we saying that they're not doing their required mandatory work? Sentence change to read. This structure requires the Board of County Commissioners to dedicate significant time and attention to mandated administrative responsibilities, leaving less time for policy development and legislation. Fifth item, page 6, line 9. Totally corrupt, partial corruption, acceptable? Is this really distinct from the case with the recommendation? Suggest cutting final clause with which should. Remove the word totally. Sentence now reads, the individual election of the 3 commissioners should provide a system of checks and balances which should in turn reduce the chance of a corrupt or partisan government. Item 6, page 6, line 18. May be inadequate seems to be an unsubstantiated claim belied by the percentage of use across the country. Suggest removing this statement or footnoting the source of the claim. No change to document. Item 7, page 6, line 22. Contrast sentence or thought seems incomplete. No change to document. Item 8, page 6, lines 26 through 27. This opens the selection process to undue influence by political parties. The connection between complexity of their duties and undue influence is unclear. Suggest removing the second sentence. Sentence change to read. Voters rarely consider administrative skills and background when electing commissioners, yet this is the most time-consuming part of the job.
This is cut off.
Item 9,
First copy.
page 6, line 28. Administrative. Do you mean executive? Every group has administrative functions. Word change to executive. Sentence now reads, neither the federal nor any state governments combine both the executive and legislative functions in one house. I have 2 copies of 4 there. There's a 3 and a 3 and another 3.
I think we missed page 1, but we can come back to that.
Yeah. That's wrong.
Page 1 was Brian's comments,
Yeah, I
and I was
expect so.
going in alphabetic order.
Oh, okay.
Bateman, Bushling. Items 10, line 6, page 6, line 32 is, should say could be. Item 11, page 6, line 33, rarely can we cite numbers, or is this opinion? Item 12, page 6, lines 33 through 34, must be trained in their job functions after being elected. This is cited as an unexpected thing under commission manager. I'm sorry, did I say, must be cited as an expected thing under commission manager. Why is it negative here but not for the recommended form? Sentence change 2. Generally, there is a lack of professionally trained management expertise. Those who are elected are rarely professionally trained managers. Item 13, page 6, line 38. Rarely consider. Seems to be unsubstantiated opinion. Response, this sentence was moved. Page 9, line 5, direct connection. By adding a manager, this creates a less direct connection that without the manager. Was that a than and just a mistype here? Than without the manager. The sentence changed to read, county administration can be based on a business model incorporating the benefits of informed fiscal management and expertise in the implementation of policies and programs while the board maintains its direct connection to county resident. Item 15, page 9, line 10, can delegate. This does not capture the complexity of what is mandated by statute versus left to the discretion of the BOCC. The sentence changed to read, the board delegates the day-to-day administrative business of county government and are therefore free to focus on policy development, constituent issues and concerns, proactive strategic planning, and other programmatic issues determined to be important by the citizens. Item 16, page 9, line 15, 3-member. What is the operative difference here? Is it the removal of administrative duties, or is it the increase in the BOCC size? Should make each element clear. No change to document. Item 17, page 9, line 17, should increase. Use may to match previous sentences. The sentence is changed to read, it may increase the resources, talents, and skill sets available to address the needs of the county. Item 18, page 9, lines 20 through 21. Mitigating the influence of partisan politics and patronage. Suggest ending the sentence without this last phrase. The phrase was removed, sentence changed to read, the advantage of having 5 people who are not burdened with low-level administrative duties may attract candidates who wish to be servant leaders. Page 9, line 24, longer time horizons. Poor wording seems to say that the manager will be slower, take longer to get stuff done. The sentence was changed to read, the position of county manager supports longer time horizons for county planning initiatives. Page 9, line 25, can. They can, but might not, suggest removing the rest of the paragraph as entirely speculative. The sentence was changed to read, the manager is more interested in long-term economic development because they are not running for an elected office. Page 9, line 29, limiting the danger of abuse of authority. This seems hypothetical. Comp with Lewiston or Utah issues. This sentence was changed to read, the county manager serves at the pleasure of the board without a definite term and can be removed at any time, reducing the danger of abuse of authority. Item 22, page 9, line 33. When the board cannot work together. If 3 can't work together, how will 5? No change to document. Page 10, line 6, short term. This is a subjective term and there is no way to know what the duration will be. The sentence was changed to read, the transition to a change from the current form of government to the commission manager form will result in temporary disruption to the organizational system. Page 10, line 10. Can be argued, legally they are, it is not a matter of argument. The sentence was changed to read, mandated services are being provided to the citizens of Kootenai County. Page 10, line 16, would, should use may for consistency. No change to document. Page 10, line 19, hence, objects to the conclusion about structure, most of the problems were attributed to the individuals involved. The phrase was removed, the sentence was changed to read, virtually every witness who testified before the study commission identified problems with the operation of the Board of County Commissioners. Page 10, lines 24 and 26. 3, triumvirate. The number of commissioners begs the question about administrative duties. Is the problem the administrative load or the problem not enough commissioners? Adjust to be less numerically bound. The sentence was changed to read, requiring commissioners to spend 70% of their time on administrative duties immediately eliminates many interested candidates who have time to serve but neither interest nor time to function as a member of an administrative committee. Page 10, line 32, assumed presumptive. This sentence should be removed. The sentence was changed to read, the decision allows counties to structure their governance differently based upon their needs. Page 10, line 39, 43% should also report percent for commission only. No change to the document. Page 11, line 29, will have, should not be stated as a fact. During the transition time, it will be up in the air. No change to the document. Page 11, line 36, consolidation of work. Maybe greater work efficiency instead. No change to the document. Page 12, line 7, allow insert can. The sentence was changed to read, expanding the number of county commissioners to 5 can provide different perspectives and can allow for better decision making. Page 12, line 19, precedent. In many cases, the county service mandates are different from the requirements in Idaho. no change to document. Page 12, line 23, expected to align. Seems irrelevant because it's out of our scope. This should be moved out of this section, pure speculation, opinion. No change to the document. Page 12, line 24, part-time, not in our scope. The word part-time was removed. The sentence now reads, if approved by the voters, the Board of County Commissioners should be expected to align its salaries with those of other councils and commissions whose duties are legislative and not administrative. Page 14, Appendix 1, suggests including the full Excel table of strengths and weaknesses, compiled by Brian. No change to the document. Comments from Bob Fish. Let's see. If we're going alphabetically, Bushling is next. Comments from Bryant Bushling. Beginning at line 11, page 2. During this time, the Commission collected information from interviews, research literature, government websites, officials in counties across the U.S. that had successfully implemented other county government structures. Successfully should be removed. First, the success of the optional form of government was measured by 1 or 2 persons from the county who are county employees who spoke to a member of our study commission by telephone. There was no basis for a member of the Kootenai County voting public to determine the appropriateness of the term successfully. In fact, in one of the counties, the manager had been successfully prosecuted for accepting bribes for a number of years, directly dealing with county business. The term successfully is a conclusory term. The voting public can assess the success of the implementation based upon the evidence presented at the presentation. The word successfully was removed. Line 8, page 4. Again, the term successfully should be removed. The word successfully was removed. Beginning at line 31, page 11. It can be argued, however, that the separation of the budget function from the audit function will strengthen checks and balances within the financial operation of the county. The above statement fails to consider the materials presented to the Study Commission by the Clerk's Office on February 15th, in which it is noted that county spending has several checks and balances to ensure policies are followed and expenses are proper. The departments enter payables, which are reviewed by department heads. The auditor provides the next level of review to ensure classification, coding, and adherence. The BOCC then receives the completed payables for one last review before they approve release of payment. If the proposed changes are adopted, the auditor's second level of review would be removed from the process. Further, the clerk provided a video clip of a report from the Office of the State Auditor of Utah regarding the separation of the budget function from the auditor function. Although there were few concerns expressed which seemed to relate to the recommendation of 5 members of the Study Commission, one that seemed to need additional discussion was the effect that federal independence rules may have on the ability of Kootenai County to accept and or retain PILT money or other types of grant money, since the federal government has rules regarding oversight of the monies granted to states and counties. It might be more correct to note that the Study Commission has not adequately considered the impact and implications of separating the budget and auditor functions. The word can was substituted for will. The sentence now reads, it can be argued, however, that the separation of the budget function from the audit function can strengthen checks and balances within the financial operation of the county. Beginning at line 23, page 12. If approved by the voters, the Board of County Commissioners should be expected to align its salaries with those of other part-time councils and commissions whose duties are legislative and not administrative. The statute does not provide for part-time commissioners. It is speculative whether or not the commissioners would voluntarily reduce their pay, especially in the light of the comments from Dan Green, who stated the BOCC needs to be full-time in order to oversee the manager in policy matters. The word part-time was removed. The sentence now reads, if approved by the voters, the Board of County Commissioners should be expected to align its salaries with those of other councils and commissions whose duties are legislative and not administrative. Beginning at line 32, page 12. This results in an increase in representation. A representation cannot increase beyond 100%. This is a mathematical certainty. The citizens are currently at 100% representation. Additional commissioners actually dilute the power of individual commissioners, and considering the redistricting issue, may actually decrease the representation of some interests depending on how the redistricting is accomplished. The word representation was deleted. The sentence now reads, this results in an increase in the commissioner to citizen ratio, efficiency, and professionalism. Comments from Bob Fish. Comment. Thank you very, very much for the great work you and your fellow committee members did on this document. I know it took many hours of your time and lots of mental anguish. I'll be approving it as presented. No change to document. Comment from Phil Ward. I believe the report explains the process we have engaged in over the last 10 months. The analysis, findings, and recommendations accurately depict the review process. Although not all of the 9 study members saw a need for any optional form, This report reflects the voice of the majority. No change to document. Those are the comments that we received prior to the March 9th meeting. Discussion? Do I have a motion to approve
I got a
this as it stands?
question for you
Fire
about
away.
the last meeting. You mentioned something about in regards to the shifting of the budget function from the clerk to the commissioner's silo under the commission manager. And the question was raised about the circumstances in Utah where they had recently experienced things that had been brought up by the state's auditor about similarly moving the functions from the clerk over to the commissioner silo that gave them greater flexibility over the budget in terms of moving things around. And the question I have is about something you said, which was, that's not what we're doing here, if I recall correctly, because in Utah, the grants went over to the commissioners as well. That is not what we're proposing here. Could you explain the basis of that? Because I have since thought about it and I couldn't see that that was the case, that somehow the grants, I think is what you were pointing out, is not going to move over with the budget officer function.
Well, to explain what I discussed last week, there was a statement in the county clerk's response that said Utah with its problems, and the problems were that the 6 counties in Utah implemented the change. Of the 6 counties, 2 were challenged by the state. One of those 2 challenges, if I remember correctly, was based upon the way that the county implemented the change. The other one, they were questioning the, shall we say, the honesty of one of the members of the government. The state auditor prepared a PowerPoint presentation with 6 pages in it. The 5th page of that presentation is titled Separation of Duties Concerns. They, in Utah, moved budgeting, accounting, preparation of financial statements, and grant management. In my mind, grant management is probably the minimum, the least of those 4 items. When they move budgeting, yes, we are talking about moving budgeting to a chief budget officer under the BOCC. We are not moving accounting. We are not moving the preparation of financial statements. Right now, budgeting, accounting, the preparation of financial statements, auditing, and other services are all performed in a single area, the clerk's office. There is no separation of duties now. By moving the budgeting, while we would not be making much of a difference in the separation of duties, we would be creating a separation of duties.
Okay, I understand your point that you made. It was more brief in the last meeting, so I understand what you're getting at right now.
I apologize if I was brief last time.
Well, we were just being brief, but that was just to one of the counties where they moved all those functions under in other counties.
No, this was the way that Utah made the move, apparently.
That's what I meant, that count, one of the counties. You're saying all of them maybe that move, or
As
just
far
one?
as I can tell from the presentation, all 6 made these moves. Of the 6, 1 was challenged on the way they did it, and 1 was questioned on the veracity of one of the people.
So as revised in the final report, was there any mention of this? Because I noted that Bryant had brought up considerations of this.
There was no reference to the information from the Utah circumstances in the report.
No, I'm aware of.
Would that be something that would be, worthy of consideration in the final report as either including it in the reference materials or alluding to, in other places, there have been experiences where there were concerns, generalize about it, and here, in moving these functions over, here's how it will happen here. It would be advisable or presumed that these functions would be separated out, so that there would be, as you described, this kind of isolation of some functions stay in the clerk's office, others move over. I would suggest maybe including something, a piece that discusses that kind of distinction from Utah. That says, other states have tried this where they did have problems. This is the beauty of learning from all states are laboratories of democracy. This is something where we should still be advised and learn from it. And this process of moving these functions over should take that into account.
Can I just-
In the
can I
writing
just-
subcommittee, we
Can I just say
did.
something
Yeah,
for
go ahead,
one
Dave.
second? I think we're on the wrong agenda item. I don't want to shut you down, Brian, but this was just to talk about the changes that were made in the comments that
Okay.
were received.
Sure,
The
sorry,
next
Dave.
one-
We'll put a pin in it, okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I think what we should do is close out that agenda item of the changes that have been made, and then we'll immediately go back into this one and could have that discussion.
I apologize.
Yeah.
I guess it's not clear to me how simply reading the comments into the record is an action item. I mean, that just seems like it's read all the comments and the changes into the
Well, actually, I
action-
was calling
into
for a
the-
vote on the acceptance of
The changes?
those changes.
I missed that, sorry.
I kind of got stopped. I was in the process of doing so when Brian made his question.
Well, shouldn't we have a discussion about those comments before we have a vote on the comments?
Okay? Be
I was
aware
wondering about
that
that.
we have just over 2 hours remaining to this meeting, and if we want to get to new comments, the more time you spend on the old comments, the less time you'll have for new.
Well, I think it's about the due process and
Feel
doing
free-
it correctly.
feel free.
I think we
Bring
should
up
have a
any-
discussion on those if there's any
Feel
clarification.
free, Tamara, let's bring it up, don't waste time, bring it up.
Let's do it. Okay. It's okay. I wanted a little clarification. There was one, it's on the first one. I think it's how Dave read it and I was not looking at it. Go around, I'll come back to it as soon as I find it. If there's
Do
any
we have any
other,
other discussion of this?
Well, actually, the power went out today as I was getting ready, and what I had on my server became unavailable. So the power has come back on, and that got emailed to me. I wonder if I can get that printed. Someone can help me print it.
Jonathan? If you can get that to Jonathan, I believe he can get that printed for you.
Thanks.
Tamara, have you found what you were looking for?
well, it's clarification. I want to know why there was no change. So page, my sixth item, so I guess that's the preliminary report, not the final report, because again, my printer issues. The question of
What number is it?
page 6, line 18, and number 6 on our thing.
Your page 2, her comment line, comment 6 is what she's
Yes.
talking about.
So if I can find it here,
Dave's trying to look at a different document than,
the original
Yeah,
one.
I'm finding it here. Hang on a sec.
Because Kurt had a red line version of it.
Yeah, in the final report, the March 9th document, it is on page 7, line 20. The paragraph, it's the opening paragraph in the weaknesses of the existing form of county government section, if people are hunting for it in hard copy.
Right, this commission form of government with its dual roles of executive and legislative authority may be inadequate to respond to the tempo and complexity of the requirements of the 21st century. I'm just wondering why that's pretty well opinion, being that 60% of our counties do have our current form. So how are we showing that it is inadequate or even the question of inadequacy and just in the wording? That's what this was about, was why it's unsubstantiated claim. I'm wondering why it was still kept. What was the?
Kurt, Dave, you were the two that were on the writing committee. Do you have any feedback on that?
My recollection of it was along the lines of we were not attempting to do an academic treatise, and so there was a desire to not have a bunch of footnotes on. This did come from the literature, I believe Kristen had said, but then when I asked for details, it was, now we don't want a bunch of footnotes. I don't think I'm misstating that too much, Kristen, am I?
It actually is in the end notes, footnotes. Anyone who wants to read those documents will find that statement.
So the source is available
So
in the.
this is an opinion-based source that we're quoting from. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's my reading of it.
okay. Alrighty, okay, on that one. The next one, on what? Page 7 of the preliminary. Yeah, because again, my thing was off. Sorry, I should have marked these. Oh, and I think I wanted clarification on this one because I think what I was trying to say was, number 19, page 9, line 24. What page are we actually on? Yes, towards the
Yeah,
bottom.
in the current draft that we're looking at from March 9th, it is page 10, line 28.
Just, again, clarification on that the county manager is charged with, the position of county manager supports longer time horizons for county planning initiatives. And then it was changed to support longer time horizons. I just wanted more clarification on that. What are you actually trying to explain?
What we're trying to say there, and maybe the word is not right, Tamara, is that that person has a longer-term vision of what they're trying to implement. So it's a horizon. The words we used was that it's not just worrying about the next election. It's worrying about the next 5 years or 10 years. That's what we were trying to say there.
Thank you on that one. And then page 9, line 33, the comment, which again, Kurt, I will go to you on where that actually is found.
Yeah,
my
just a
paper
moment
is off.
here.
I think page 11.
Your report, page 4, note 22.
Yes, sorry. Yes.
It is still on page 10, lines 34, 35, I believe.
Oh, the very bottom.
Yep.
The county manager is dependent upon the strength of and cooperation among the members of the board. Therefore, the manager might find it challenging to take effective action when the board cannot work together. And so my question was on that, well, if 3 can't work together, how is that going to be beneficial to have 5 working with the county manager?
I think the reason we chose not to make a change in the document at this place is because we were focused on the role of the manager, not necessarily the number of members on the board.
Yeah, the other part of this was, and this is again goes back to some of the research, was that when you look at some of the challenges that a county manager does have, it's when they have a dysfunctional board. And your answer is correct, that 3 or 5 wouldn't make a difference if they're dysfunctional. But what we were trying to say here is that we're trying to give a weakness of a county manager. So we were trying to actually say this could be a problem. So if it's 3 or 5, it doesn't matter, but it could be a problem whether we have 3 commissioners or 5. But like Kurt said, this was just for the manager itself, not for the 5.
Okay.
But that's what we were trying to get to, Tamara.
Being that your recommendation, though, is to increase to 5, I just thought it was, maybe.
Yeah, and the answer is it wasn't number specific. The county manager has a problem if they have a dysfunctional board. That's basically what it is, however it is.
Okay. And then 29, Kurt.
Let me take a quick look.
You're talking page 5, line 29 of this
Yes, yes,
document.
sorry.
It is on page 12, line 3.
Okay, yeah, these counties range in population size from less than 15,000 to over 1 million. 43% of the counties have an appointed administrator supporting a board of county commissioners. I just felt if we're going for true transparency, why isn't the 60% not stated for the county governments that are functioning differently? I mean, we were putting in percentages. Wouldn't it just be appropriate to put in all the percentages? It's true, that is the percentage, the 43% of the counties have that, but it also means that there's 60% that don't. So it's just for transparency and balance.
I mean, the logic was you subtract 100 from 43, and that's the number. So that's why we didn't
No,
put it
but
in.
reading it lends itself to,
Less than half of them have this form.
yes, but most people will just read, 43%, and not actually make that jump to, I'm not saying that will or will not happen, but if you're putting in the 1%, why is it not just stipulated? Although there are 60-some percent. I know there was no change, I'm just, so you're saying that it was
Well,
just an intuitive jump to
That
make
was
as you're
that was
reading
the
it.
logic, is that normally when you put a number of percentages and there's two things, it's usually one or the other. So that it wasn't. We're not slanting it. The number is the correct number. So,
Well, and I'll point out that this citation comes from a section in the document that is called the rationale for the recommended changes.
About the rationale again.
So it's opinion based on that one pushing for that information to support that recommendation. Okay.
In this part of the document, yes.
Okay. Then the next one is page 11, line 29, and that's number 30. Oh, you know what? That's why we actually took care of that, because it's not, yeah. Well, will not be stated as a fact, and will really be up in the air. That was changed, wasn't it? Number 30?
This is number 30. Yeah, I believe we changed it to may have, but I'll double check here.
But it's following this one, which is on my page 12. Oh, the current works for this movement of work will have no impact on the way. And I said that's being stated as fact. So was that changed in the final one then, or is it still that way? This movement of work will have no impact on the way. Is that the right one?
Oh, yeah, that's the one. This movement of work and talking about moving the budget responsibility to the manager will have no effect on the way the elected officials or other departments prepare and submit their budgets for approval. This is now on page 12, line 35.
But actually this one is referencing the transition time, and that statement is not referencing the transition time.
Okay, hang on a sec. Let me find the right place here.
I know that one wasn't changed. Isn't it on page 12?
Yeah, but this one is different than the final.
No, it's on page 12, I think is where you're looking. Page 12, the second
on
to the last
12.
paragraph. This would have no impact on the way it was, yeah, over here.
But that's not the transition time reference.
Oh. Then I'm looking at the wrong one.
Yeah, let me pull up another copy that I have here.
On your, on the grid document, Ken,
Yeah?
you're talking about, what number on the grid document is this?
Number 30.
In the 30?
Yes.
It is in reference to
that what it
the
was?
movement of the budget preparation work.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was page 11, line 18. It's now page 12, line 35.
So this movement of work will have no impact on the way the elected officials or other departments prepare and submit their budgets for approval. And no way of impact because, what was your rationale for,
Well, today they prepare their budget, they send it to a person in the clerk's office who is charged with collecting it, or a group of people in the clerk's office. In the future, they will send it to a person or a group of people within the manager's office who will be doing the same role that is currently held by the clerk's office.
okay, so that was your, okay, basis for that one. Okay, then shortly thereafter that, number 31, line 36.
This one, I recall, we discussed, that the intent is actually that there may be consolidation of work. So that work today, which is done across 17 departments, maybe the manager will come up with ways to restructure the 17 departments, and maybe they'll turn into 15 departments or 10, or who knows. So it is hypothetical, but it was intended to represent consolidation of work.
So wouldn't, but the potential savings through consolidation of work, we don't even know that it could be a consolidation of work.
Correct.
Therefore, then we don't even know if there could be potential savings. So I
Correct.
think the way that it's phrased is skewed. I think if there's a it'd be better to stipulate or say it as there could be a possibility, or the possibility of consolidation within the 17 departments. But saying that it's the potential savings through the consolidation is lending itself as fact. And it's not fact. It's a possibility.
It is all hypothetical, I agree with you. I'm not sure how many times it makes sense to repeat hypothetical or some synonym thereof within the same sentence. So it's possible savings or potential savings through consolidation of work or reduction of current headcount cannot be determined at this time. Now, consolidation of work or reduction of headcount are both hypothetical, therefore the savings from those actions is also hypothetical. That's why we felt that saying potential savings through these mechanisms can't be determined.
Okay, I still think adding just, the possibility of, or adding two words, the possibility of potential savings is just clearer instead of stipulating that, I know it cannot be determined and we can't determine any of that stuff. But the way it's said here is that there will be consolidation and there will be, there could be potential savings through that. It's just a little clarification, but I
Okay.
think it's more,
I'm okay with that.
So do we have to?
Potential.
Do that?
Let's finish with what we've got, and then we'll have to do that,
so
yes.
add the
Yeah.
possibility of.
So I'm modifying the sentence, or suggesting that we modify the sentence to say, adding a new position will increase costs, but the potential savings through possible consolidation of work within the 17 departments managed by the Board of County Commissioners and/or any reduction of current board department headcount cannot be determined at this time. That work?
Yeah, it's a little more clear, 'cause, we don't know, cannot be determined, but there's no guarantee in any of it. Okay,
The sentence starts by saying, that a new position will increase costs. That's the beginning of the sentence.
No, I,
Adding a new position will increase costs. That's what you just
I
said?
know, we're not responding to noise in the room, but.
Could you repeat what you said before? Kurt?
I say the sentence, just to remind you that the sentence starts with the statement of adding a new position,
Okay,
namely
yes,
the
that's the correct
manager,
sentence.
will increase costs.
Yes. Okay, 2 left. Number 33, page 12, line 19.
Mr. President.
This is now on page 13 at line 23.
Okay, so however, to our knowledge, there is no precedent across the United States for a 5-member Board of Commissioners to be paid for administrative duties they do not perform. I understand with your verbiage of to our knowledge. I think the problem here is that there was not an in-depth study done in the sense of all of us looking at everything, and I don't even know if that's possible to do that, to study all of the 5-member Board of Commissioners to be paid. So within the study that was performed, and those commissioners were paid part-time, that doesn't lend itself to that's the way it's across the county. And so no to your knowledge, but I think the way this statement is misleading, well, according to the 9 that Kristen talked to, that may be the case, but there's thousands of counties across the country. And so if we're not gonna really research to that, then I don't think that's a viable statement. And are those administrative duties that they are required to perform in those counties, are they exactly the same that they are required in our county? I think that's more of an actual orange to orange study, and therefore you can talk about the payment and all that. But some of those counties that were researched, those boards do not do the mandated services that ours do. So therefore our requirements are actually higher than those. And that was not stipulated in here. So I think it's just a statement that is lending itself to, oh, there's no case for county commissioners across the country to get paid what they get paid. So therefore, we're saying they shouldn't be paid that. And it's just, if you're going to state it in that way, you need to have the support, you need to have the evidence in order to do that. And that wasn't done.
Well, I think I changed your paraphrase a little bit in terms of saying there's no precedent for boards of commissioners to be paid for work they don't do. And I don't know how to argue that without a comprehensive study.
Correct, which is why I think that should be stricken, because it's being used as support, but it's not fact-based.
Well, the next sentence really also covers it, really. The benchmark information indicates commissioners with reduced duties have corresponding reduction in salaries and benefits. That's benchmarking.
Are we basing that just on the 9 counties
No, I
that you
think
guys did?
Kristen,
Or are we
I think
basing
we
it
were
on?
basing it on study of all, the data that Kristen got from whatever that website was.
Is
Well,
that-
but again, I think maybe Kristen can comment on whether there were more than just the
NACO,
9.
N-A-O, NACO.
So you looked at commissioner salaries relative to local income or local benchmark data across the country? I'm not sure that this has much to do with the number of commissioners. It's more a question of the reduction of administrative load.
Well, it's also being used to push the 5 members that this will be a reduction in taxes, that this is going to be a benefit to the taxpayers. And this is the basis for that position. But what I'm questioning here is, where are you getting all of that? And if it's just based on the 9, or did you do a full NACO study on all of the counties, or at least 51% of the counties in our country, in order to determine what actually is the benchmark and what is the overriding precedence? Because I actually asked Kristen if she had talked to anybody or any county who did not have the commission manager but had the 5. And she said no. She put in that it was all just the commission manager or manager position and the 5. So having somewhat more of a balanced view within this statement and within the study is what I'm asking for. Or where did you get this information, and is that then put in the back so we can reference it? That statements are being made, but there's nothing to substantiate it.
Well, I don't want to jump in here, but what
Kristen's
Kurt
on the
gave us
line.
is that, to the best of our knowledge, there is no precedent. That is not a statement, there is no precedent.
No, but to the best of our knowledge, which, and I said that, I called attention to that, but to the best of our knowledge, okay, if we're talking about 9 counties, we're talking about 20 counties, that's not to the best of our knowledge. That's not a complete study. If we're going to do something about that and then be able to state to the best of our knowledge, we should be able to state over 51% of the time that this is the case. But to the
You
best
do
of
know
our
that we
knowledge,
can't recommend the pay rate.
Well,
We have no basis to
Yeah.
recommend the
I-
pay to the
Correct.
county commissioners. That is up to them. If they choose to reduce it, there will be a savings. If they do
Well-
not choose to reduce it, there will not.
yeah, the reason this was put in, and maybe it's the way it's written, is not what we're trying to say, okay, is we tried to go and address the issues we heard at the public hearing about cost. Okay, so what we did is we put black and white, we don't know what it's gonna be. Adding 2 more people could be more
Correct.
costly. But we also wanted to put in here that there are alternatives that could reduce that additional cost. And that's what we were trying to say here. I mean, in essence, that's what it's trying to say. So you know, maybe all these words, Tamara, is, like, it doesn't make a difference whether it's 3 or 5 or what, like, on that, is what we're just trying to say, the actual cost impact of adding 2 additional county commissioners is unknown. Adding new positions will appear to increase cost. However, there may be ways to offset that cost by reductions of hours without even saying how many counties or the what. That's what we were trying to say. We were trying, when you do a report like this, you're trying to address the issues of the people who think there's gonna be cost increases, and for people who think there may be a way to mitigate it. And that's what this was trying to do. It wasn't saying you wasn't gonna do one way or the other. So if there's a better way to write it, that's what we were trying to say.
well, yeah, I would rephrase that because I don't think, I mean, I know you guys did that study and it's took a lot of time and there's a lot of counties and I have spent hours of research on my own looking at NACO and stuff. And I just feel that this is leaning to one side, and I think having referencing your personal opinion in there, that there is no precedent to what you have done so
Well-
far, I totally understand that, but I don't think that that's relevant, and I'm not trying to, you
No,
know.
I understand your point. I'm just trying to understand what, if any, change would be.
Well, and this is not intending to be the personal opinion of any one individual. It's supposed to be representing the consensus opinion of the committee. So when it says to the best of our knowledge, it is supposed to be representing the knowledge that has been acquired by this entire committee.
Okay, well, I think because this is hypothetical as well, and we're back to that phrasing it in that it's a hypothetical situation, because it is completely hypothetical. We cannot stipulate pay, we cannot stipulate hours, we have no choice in that. It's completely out of our hands. They have complete authority and autonomy in their executive decision-making ability to decide they can work full-time or get paid full-time, but work part-time. And that's the way it is. There's nothing we can do about that. This is phrasing it in such a way that it's misleading to the public. And I think it needs to be restated in some way that, yes, in other counties across the country, these commissioners get paid part-time. Whether that can happen here or not is completely out of our purview. We have no say in that, but that could be an option. The way it's stated here is more 5 members, you're pretty well gonna have to take part-time pay. And that's how people read it, that's how I read it, and I don't believe that's accurate.
Well, I don't know that we can wordsmith this on the fly right now, but let's see if we can figure out a way to draft a more impartial statement. How's that, for this paragraph?
That's fine.
Because I think it's the whole paragraph ultimately is what you're objecting to, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Well, I think we need everybody's opinion of, not just, I mean, so.
Agreed, we need
What are other-
consensus.
What's-
Well, we have one other change that we were talking about.
Right.
This is a second. when we finish going through this list, we can go back
It's all
to
in
these
the
two
same-
and vote on them.
Are you talking about my next one? Yeah.
Whatever, we
That was
already
the
had
next
one.
one, and it's all within the same paragraph, so we can all deal with it all at the same time. Yeah, that's fine.
But I would like to see if we could try to come up with some language. I mean, because we'll hear some.
Agreed
We'll hear
on-
some things from Brian.
And Brian may
others.
have some things that may bear on this too.
Yeah,
So
right,
rather than
yeah.
jumping to a conclusion
Yeah.
right now, I'd really like to get all the input and then
Right.
figure out how to
I
synthesize
agree.
it all.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it for me.
Okay. What was the first change that you had that we were talking about making?
On this last point,
No.
No, the first change was at the end of page 12, lines 42 and 43. It's the last sentence essentially on page 12. Adding a new position will increase costs, but the potential savings through insert possible consolidation of work within the 17 departments managed by the Board of County Commissioners, insert and / or any reduction of current board headcount cannot be determined at this time. So
Okay.
it's inserting two words.
Okay, we have potential savings in the current version, right?
Correct.
And we want to change that to possible potential savings?
No, we want to change it to potential savings through possible consolidation of work. So right now, it just says potential savings through consolidation of work.
well, actually, I like what Dave said. It is a possible it's, the whole thing is theoretical. So you have a possible savings that could occur based on the theoretical change of the consolidation of the work. So, yeah, it's gonna require a little more wordsmithing than just, because there could be potential savings, there could not be. There could be, consolidation, there could not be. So the whole
Well-
sentence in and of itself is theoretical.
You don't need to have possibility, potential, you're duplicating.
Correct, no, I know that.
Potential, it's
Well, that's
possible,
why
it's also possible it
The
won't happen.
possibility of or putting possible, or the theory,
it's-
whatever the verbiage that
It's
we
just,
choose.
it's just, but the potential saving, excuse me, the
Well, that's,
possible savings through consolidation of work. That's what you're saying. Instead of taking potential and making it possible.
But the possible, so adding
Well-
a new position will increase costs, but the possible savings
Through,
through consolidation of work, but again, that in itself is theoretical. But yes, I do not want possible potential. That's.
right, but I
And
mean,
the
it-
alliteration is
that's
not
why I
necessary.
came up, I left the potential savings, and then I made consolidation of work a possibility by saying through possible consolidation of work.
yeah, that's,
So we don't know if there's gonna be consolidation, so.
Correct.
I was attempting to capture your concern there by saying that in itself is iffy.
So the assumption is through the possibility of consolidation of work, we will then possibly have potential savings, but yes.
If we consolidate work, then we might be able to save
Potentially,
money.
there could be,
Right,
but we don't know that either.
correct.
but we have potential savings. That's
Of course, if we
potential.
consolidate the work and make them more highly compensated positions, we might
And there's no
spend more money.
savings.
So, I
Correct,
mean,
it could
yeah,
cost more. That's my point.
Okay, we're doing a lot of discussion over that. Let's put this one to a vote. Who wants to modify this to add the possible into the,
Consolidate.
Could we-
consolidation of work?
would it be fair to take the previous comments and the changes that were made in conjunction with those and tie that off, and then we can take these two remaining points from Tamara and consider them along with Brian and any other input
In case we
in the
come
next
back up
item
to
of
it
the
again.
agenda? And come back to them on the next item?
Well, yeah, if they have it and they might have
Correct.
input on that.
Okay, you'll make a note of the two issues?
I have them
that will
noted.
Bring it up.
Yep,
I wouldn't want to lose either one of them.
I have them both.
Okay. That was Tamara's, you're complete now, Tamara?
Yes, I am, thank you.
Bryant Bushling, did you want to make any comments on your comments? No. Okay. That, I believe, brings us to the end of the old comments. If I can find my,
You need to make a motion to accept.
I think we're going to need to make a motion to accept the old comments with the exception of these two issues.
Which will be discussed later.
Yeah,
And I
that's
won't
fine.
try to restate the two issues.
So
that have
I
been
will
pertinent.
move that we accept the previous comments and the adjustments to the initial draft that were made with the exception of these 2 points from Tamara.
Okay, second?
Second.
Vote? Second was Phil. Ready, Dave, vote? Looks like we
Yes.
accepted these.
I vote yes.
Thank you.
So I'm going to move that we take, Brian, were you able to forward your email over to John? Okay. Could I suggest that we take a 10-minute break and we see if we can get Brian's comments
It's almost
into
7
some
o'clock.
form that we can have circulated?
Yeah, if you want to take a break.
Yeah, I think a break is
Well, do you
reasonable.
think that will allow you to get the comments you want?
Having trouble getting them, so I'm gonna have to rely on just orally kind of recounting some of them, which would,
You couldn't send it to him?
yeah, I'm having trouble getting.
I think he's saying he's having problems downloading it. Is that what I'm hearing?
So,
Okay.
you know, we could, if you want to take a break and come back and give them to you.
That may give you a few minutes to work out the technical difficulties, I'm hoping.
Let me see.
Okay,
Is there a motion for a 10-minute break then?
so moved.
Second?
David.
Dave, second.
Okay, vote for break. We are having a 10-minute break. And we're having a duck fly by.
Yeah, wake her up.
Let's reconvene, get moving here so we can get the information out. Yes. Actually, it's pretty much going to have to be tonight's meeting, because when we finish this meeting, it's the end of the comment section. So, yeah, if they can get anything to you, the better. The more they can get you, the better. If all we can do is top level, that's kind of where we're stuck.
Say, Dave.
If the members would return to their seats, let's get back onto this so that we can get the information moving. This meeting is reconvened. We are now going to be discussing new comments for possible inclusion in the draft final report. I know that, Brian, you're still working on it. Let's try to give other people a chance if anyone has anything before we come to you. Is that fair enough? Okay. New comments, anybody?
Of
Save Brian
course.
here.
Pardon?
Save Brian and give him a
Say,
chance
I'll
to
give
have a little more
Brian-
time.
Give him a timeout.
Do you have copies of what you
Just written,
Okay.
not really. Yeah, I referenced it at the last meeting on the, it's my page 12, right above, it's basically that same page that we're gonna come back to. Kurt?
Okay.
Um,
I'm looking for it here.
it's the paragraph directly prior to the whole paragraph that we,
Okay, is this the one that says one of the county manager's duties? Is that the
the
paragraph?
duties of the county manager under the commission manager form of government are outlined.
Got it, okay,
Okay.
yes.
So-
Where's that one?
It is in
12.
the final, well, now draft, the March 9th draft, page 12, line 24.
Okay, so it's what I referenced in the last open meeting about the scope of the county's manager's responsibilities is limited to the jurisdiction departmental scope of the Board of County Commissioners. This includes all the advisory boards and committees under the Board of County Commissioners. Those duties are administrative in nature. The county manager will have no ability to set policy. All policy decisions will continue to be made by the board as described in Idaho code. Okay, so I think my issue here, and coming back to it from before, was the scope of the commission manager form and the manager's responsibilities is really not detailed here in the amount of executive authority the commission manager would have, and that the county attorney came back and stipulated. Again, the county attorney, since there is no statute, there is no case law, there's nothing for the county attorney to reference in Idaho regarding this, that the terminology is, well, it's just what he stated as a reasonable interpretation. This paragraph, I think, limits the full authority and minimizes it to make it seem that this position would not have the full authority that the commission manager would have. According to the attorney, the commission manager would oversee all the BOCC departments, would have full disciplinary and executive authority in hiring and firing of those employees. The manager is not limited by the BOCC, and actually the BOCC can increase the manager's responsibilities if they decide to. The BOCC does not have the authority to overrule the manager's decisions. None of that is really in there. The way it kind of reads is that this is just going to be, you know, an employee who's kind of working underneath them, and yes, this person can be removed at any time by the pleasure of the board, but this person in that interim has full executive authority to almost completely create the entire county culture by all the hiring and firing of over 300 employees, and by one person putting anyone that they want to, only one person putting whom they want, and by statute, on advisory boards and committees, instead of what we currently have in our county structure, which is more of a cross-section being created by our 3 county commissioners who pick and choose through the process. That's more representative of our republic, but this minimizes what power the commission manager truly has, and by statute. So I'm not trying to add anything to it. I'm just saying it needs to be more clearly stated the amount of power a commission manager actually really has over and under the BOCC departments and employees and boards and committees. And this minimizes it. I just felt that it needed to be more clearly stated on, it's a breadth of power. It's pretty wide, and that is substantiated by the county attorney. So, and I referenced that last time, but we didn't get a chance to talk about it, so I'm bringing it up again.
I think I resemble those comments. I agree with your comments. That's one of mine, which is, you know, it is a reasonable interpretation of that provision of the commission manager's authority that that commission manager exercises the executive authority of the county with respect to appointments to boards, nominations and appointments to boards and committees. That's a bit of power, and I think that it ought to be recognized. And beyond just that, it goes to our current form of government operates through those boards and committees. That is the broad reach of how democracy and the republic works, through the people being parts of those citizen boards and committees appointed by commissioners. 2 out of 3 have to vote somebody onto those. And we haven't, indicated that, that might change under this commission manager form, where only the commission manager makes those types of appointments, recognizing fully and acknowledging that, sure, they could fire the commission manager if they don't like the appointments. There may be some consequences to that, depending on whether it's for cause or not, but that's a structural change. Our democracy works largely in formulating the policy of this county through boards and committees currently appointed by by the commissioners. And that policy is deliberated upon in those. There's opportunities for public comment in that, and the cream rises to the top, supposedly, at which point a recommendation is formed to the commissioners to act upon. By changing our county form of government, we are actually adjusting that structure by which the community participates. They're still able to come through the boards and committees, yes, but who gets appointed to them changes potentially fundamentally with this commission manager. That's a lot of authority to have in a commission manager, and it changes that. You need 2 out of 3 to get somebody on a board or committee. And that, I think that really has these folks develop policy from the bottom up, and the commissioners act on it, 3 of them. And it really changes that dynamic, and we haven't explained that to the public in here. I'm tagging off what Tamara's saying, but I think that it gets to the kind of a core concept of how is it that our democracy in the county works right now, and how does that change with this commission manager, particularly with respect to boards and committees.
I think what you're looking at, make sure I've got this on. I think what you're looking at is a little bit of a misunderstanding. The advisory boards and committees in this county do not set policy, do not make policy. They can debate and they can make a recommendation, but policy is set by the Board of County Commissioners. Under the commission manager form of government, that would continue to be exactly the same. The boards and advisory boards and committees can only make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. They will have no authority that they don't have now. the Board of County Commissioners will continue to make policy. To suggest that the county manager would have the authority in some way to make policy because of this is a bit of a stretch. He's not making policy, he's not, the only thing he can do is name people to boards and committees. Those boards and committees will make recommendations, and those recommendations can be discussed by the county commissioners. And if the county commissioners do not want to take their recommendations, they don't have to, just like our recommendation does not need to be implemented. There's nothing in the statute that says a recommendation we make must be implemented by the county commissioners. And there's nothing in the statute that says a recommendation from the planning commission needs to be implemented by the Board of County Commissioners. They do set policy now, and they will continue to do so. So to suggest that his ability to name people to boards is going to change the structure of this county, I think we're kind of getting a little bit off.
So my point, I think I was clear that it was that these boards and commissions function to make recommendations. If I said otherwise, then, you know, I stand corrected, but I thought I was quite clear. They function to make recommendations. The commissioners make the policy, but they, in developing those recommendations, that is, you know, at the heart of how, you know, the democratic government works in the county, which is citizens appointed to these boards and committees are deliberating over what policy should be, what recommended policy should be, okay? And that what's changing here is that there is a commission manager who potentially has the unilateral authority to appoint these people. And yes, at the end of the day, if their recommendations are things the commissioners are against, it's their choice, yes or no, to take the recommendation or reject it. But I do think it is important to understand that shift of here is a commission manager who's going to be making those appointments to those boards and committees that serve as the, you know, kind of public clearinghouse, if you will, and the place where the citizens, whether they be members of those boards and committees, and also through the input to them, you know, they are formulating the recommendation on policy that goes up. And I think it's important to note that that is a change for this county, and I think people should be aware of it. And in the report, I think that's something that should be pointed out.
I believe the report already has the fact that the statute says that he will have the authority to appoint. And I believe we've included that in the report, if I'm not mistaken.
I got a question, Brian, on what I'm hearing is the assumption that the commission manager would not discuss the candidates for advisory boards with the county commissioners. So it's going to be, the county commissioners would have no input. I'm not saying who actually does the appointment. Wouldn't you expect on some advisory boards that they would be collaborating with the county manager, county commissioners?
Here's what I would expect based on observation and experience is under the form that is proposed, that is being proposed with 5 commissioners who would then vote to reduce their salaries and effectively turn themselves into part-time commissioners by virtue of that they would take a role that is not like what's going on now with 3 commissioners who are constantly engaged, that there's a slight step back from that because they are part-time, and that they will look to that commission manager for the recommendations that that commission manager makes, and the authorities of that commission manager include recommending policy changes in the county, but also you know, the appointment of folks. And I think what you're going to find in practice is the commission manager identifies the people that the commission manager thinks should be on those boards and committees and may talk to the commissioners about it. And I think that their step back in terms of involvement compared to what's going on now with the 3, I think is they're just going to tacitly accept and go, right, go ahead. they're going to trust in the commission manager and his recommendations. They're not going to be close to the everyday fires of government, so to speak. And they're going to rely on that commission manager to make those appointments in the judgment of the commission manager. And that, to me, is a change that from what we have now, which is 3 commissioners sit and make the appointments. They vet those people, they pick them, they put them on. I don't think that it's going to be anywhere near that level of scrutiny now, and also ownership of that decision. Owning the decision to put them on, because they say, well, you know, the commission manager made that appointment. Yeah, I don't like that guy either, you know. And there's that distancing from responsibility that comes with the commission manager position. Just like we're sitting here making a recommendation that I think the commissioners would rather not have to come up with themselves. And so, you know, I think you're going to find that in spades with the commission manager. It'll be on him and bring us the solution.
I think one thing there in what you just said, you're assuming that the elected officials would decide that they really didn't want to do the job, in essence. You know, right now our elected officials are spending a great deal of their time not on policy, not on legislation, but on administration. And when you talk about that, if you're saying that this person is going to spend fewer hours, let's say he's going to spend, instead of 8 hours a day, 2 hours a day, or 1 hour a day. You compare that with the amount of time they're spending on administrative efforts right now, they may be spending more time on policy.
And I want
So it's just something that right now we can't say which it's going to be, but it could easily be more time on policy and more attention to the detail.
That's exactly right, and history proves that, as our checking with dozens and dozens of cities and counties. It's just the opposite of what you're saying. The county commissioners have more time to work with people outside of what they're doing right now because they spend so much time with administrative work. So I really personally think, from what we know, and you talk about experience, I've had experience too. Most of them have professional city managers, and it frees them up to do what they should be doing. And they're talking to a lot more people and business people in the community. It's an accepted practice throughout this country, this type of organization for county governance.
Yeah, Bob, you know.
Hang on a second, Brian. Phil had his hand up. Yeah.
Sorry, Phil.
You know, a county manager is just that, a manager. There are still 3 or 5 elected people who oversee that person. Does he have authority or she have authority? Yes. Does she have absolute authority? No, because he has no power. The power still resides with those elected officials. Does anyone here think for 1 minute that if a county manager was hired and came in and started firing people, that any one of our 3 county commissioners would allow that? I think we're denigrating what the authority that our county managers have and our elected officials have. As it is right now, you have 3 county managers who control 3 county commissioners who control these separate departments. Then you have 6 elected department heads who can pretty much do what they want. There's not a whole lot of control over it, other than they talk about the budget. But I think you need to, first of all, consider what is the actual role of that manager. Will the manager actually be subservient or under the Board of County Commissioners? By law, he has to be, or she has to be. And I think if any of us think that a commissioner is going to allow some commissioner or some manager to come in here and try to run roughshod over the county employees is naive at best.
Not according to the county attorney, Phil. The county attorney absolutely stipulated that the BOCC does not have the authority to overrule the manager's decisions. They can fire the county manager, but he or she they do not have the authority. Those decisions are made with that executive authority of that manager, not the BOCC, and they cannot overrule them.
That's a pretty good authority, and I've worked in a lot of governments where they had county managers and city managers. And trust me, if the city manager starts going astray from what that elected group wants, that manager is soon looking for a job.
Hey, can I just add something? I think, Brian, can I just jump in front of you? Okay, thank you. I think we're into a different concern that was attempting to be addressed in this area. So it may be helpful to clarify why this point was even put here. It was not to talk about what you talked about, Brian, about the actual structural change of how these individuals will be assigned to an advisory board. It was intended to answer the question of the concern that the county manager would be able to dip into the other 6 elected officials. So the way that this was written in a way to say, no, the county manager only has the authority from the BOCC. And that's the way it's written. What I'm hearing from you and Tamara is a different issue of that this change will structurally change how advisory boards obviously will be selected. And by doing so, you're taking that decision from an elected official to a hired official. So this may not be the right place to actually try to change it, because it was really intended to try to answer a different question.
I'm wondering if, in some ways, maybe we overlooked having a section in the document, because we have sections that talk about the strengths and weaknesses of the existing form. We have a section that talks about the strengths and weaknesses of the proposed form. And then we have a section on the rationale for the change, but we don't have anything that is, in a sense, arguments against the change. And what I hear Tamara and Brian saying sounds like it would fit into that section on arguments against the change.
What I'm hearing actually is marketing discussions. Not so much the recommendation itself, but how do you sell or oppose this when it comes to an election? That's what I'm hearing from Tamara and Brian, is these are problems I see with it, don't vote for it.
Well, you're just making an assumption that is not based in either. What we're trying to say here is that the power, the scope of power that the commission manager would have is minimized in this paragraph.
Well,
And
if
it
we're
needs to
talking about
be-
the paragraph that Dave was talking about, it doesn't discuss the scope of power of the commission, of the manager, except to the extent that he does not have any scope over the 6 elected officials.
Correct, which is an omission of the scope of power that he would have, or she would have, within the BOCC departments.
That's a different issue. Right now, he's saying that this is a section that's discussing whether he has power over the other elected officials, and the answer is no.
Okay?
Now, if we need a section on the scope of the authority of the manager within the BOCC, we already have that in saying these are his responsibilities.
Yes, but
Belaboring a
without,
single one of his responsibilities.
I see what you're saying about that section. You know, the point of that section was just to say, look, he doesn't have any authority over the other 6 silos.
Yes.
And to what Kurt was trying to summarize there is maybe there needs to be, in addition to something existing or something new, that just basically gets to this other subject of understanding what is within the commission manager silo, what is his authority, rather than just, you know, say, make appointments to boards and commissions, or committees, I'm sorry. You know, what does that mean in terms of the government, good and bad? I mean, the fair and balanced part is, so to speak, considering both sides of the coin. I think some of that's missing in there. So it might, you know, on Dave's point about like this particular section, what he's saying, I agree with you. What you're saying is, to that point, yeah, he's not going to be reaching into other silos. That's the point being made there. Mine might go to the, beyond that particular point in that section is a broader point about adequately discussing this. And it's not to convince voters one way or the other. It is to adequately inform people of what is the scope of that authority.
Well, the
What's
authority
implication?
is defined by the statute, and that is in here. I don't believe anybody's questioning that.
Yes, but we had to go to the county attorney to seek verification on what does that actually mean, and that's what we're saying.
Actually, I don't believe we had to go to the county attorney. We did.
We did.
We went to the county attorney. The county attorney said to us that the manager would have no more scope of authority than the BOCC has now. Then I had a half dozen more questions asking, well, would he have this? Would he have that? Would he have the other? And the answer came back, he has no more authority than the BOCC has.
That is
So
correct on that point,
What
but
you're
that's
looking
not,
at is, we're getting into the weeds on this. He has no more authority than the BOCC has. We have delineated based on the statute what his authority is. And if you're worried that you're going to get a tyrant, then that's the thing you need to say to people to keep them from voting for it.
so what is the problem, Dave, of actually just putting in the additional information received by the county attorney stipulating whether it's a reasonable interpretation, seems consistent, the BOCC does not have the authority. We are here to inform the voters, we are here to provide a study, to provide a service, but you're purposefully leaving out information that absolutely does that, that
No,
informs
I'm
the
leaving out
voters.
information that is basically immaterial. It is stated in the book report right now, he has the authority to appoint boards and committees, commissions, whatever the phrase
Correct,
is.
but Phil
Now-
just
now,
stated,
You don't need to belabor that for 10 pages as to what is that authority. He has that authority.
he
It's
has
there.
that authority, but the question that we were all discussing, and the reason we went back to the county attorney, was actually what Phil was talking about. And the county attorney came back and said that the commission manager has the full executive authority, and the county commissioners cannot overrule that.
Which is
That's
what
an
he said the
important-
first time.
Why can't we put that, you're explaining the statute to inform the voters of the full meaning by the county attorney on what these statutes mean. Why the omission of that information?
I don't believe it's an omission. It is in there. He has this authority, period.
It does not.
You don't have to go back and delineate every small detail. Can he fire this person? Can he hire that person? These are small details.
That's
He
not.
has the authority. It's in the statute, it's in the report. He has the authority.
Yes, Dave. No, it's an omission, because if it was that clear, we as a commission would not have needed to go to the county attorney to seek clarification.
Well, a couple of things is that, and you've said this before, Tamara, is that's an interpretation. Nobody knows until it's actually implemented, if it gets implemented. That's true. But I think, again, what I'm hearing is not what is the role of the county commission manager. What I'm hearing is explaining a little more detail what that actually looks like. Not by going line by line, but basically saying is that today, these boards are the decision on these boards are exclusively with the county commissioners. Tomorrow it would be with the commission manager. Whatever those are, but it's more like another point on there. And we didn't address that particular point anywhere that I could remember. It might have been in there, but I can't remember it. So I don't know if it would be harmful to put another paragraph, another 3 lines in there to at a high level, not just to go say it. I mean, I don't know. And I also thought that the report, actually, I find it interesting that I always thought the report was requirement, which it is, and it was report to go to the county commissioners. I never thought it was a report to sell this or not sell it to the public. I thought that would be done after the decision was made by the county commissioners. So, I mean, because then you would have a 100-page report because we all have different views. I think that's part of our challenge right now, is in some of these areas, it's a view of what you think, okay? And that's hard to do that. So I'm not opposed to trying to put something in there. I don't know what other, Bob and Phil and Dave, what you think, and Kristen, but I think when we didn't put that in there, so if we put it in there, it'll make it a little more clearer. I just don't know what to say.
Yeah, just like we have a paragraph or two that talk about the change in the budget
Yeah.
preparation responsibilities. I think having a paragraph that talks about the change in this appointment responsibility would be fair.
Yeah.
Why are you picking the appointment responsibility? That's one of the most minor things that he's doing. Why don't we put something in about every one of his authorities?
Well, actually,
I
we're
think-
getting there. I mean, we're practically there at this point. I mean,
Yeah,
it's the full executive authority, I mean, and what that means, I think. We can call it that if you think the appointment to the boards is minor. We'll just talk about what it means for them to have the full executive authority.
Well, but I think there were certain things that people were concerned about with the commission manager. We heard about cost. We tried to address it. We heard about the authority over the other 6 areas. We tried to address it here, okay? And now we heard about the advisory boards. That was a theme, advisory boards. So to me, we didn't hear about all 900 things that they do, but we heard about 2 or 3 things. We've addressed 2 of those for sure. And the question is, should we just put another in there to address that one issue about what it means for advisory boards? They have the authority, but what does it mean? We try to explain that, and I don't know how, again, I don't know what you say.
I don't know how you're gonna explain that in 2 or 3 sentences. So if you listen to what we're getting as response, there's absolutely no understanding of what that that authority is.
But I personally think Brian actually summarized it more than 3 sentences, because you tend to do that. But what you actually said was that decision, the advisory boards are an advisory area. They advise the county commissioners. Today, those boards are appointed by direct input by the county commissioners. Tomorrow, they will be hired, or not hired, appointed with, you could argue, no input from the county commissioners or selective input on. But that's what you were saying, Brian, right? I mean, you were actually saying that it's a change structurally that could have implications that people should consider.
The implications part, which I think Dave would have. I think the implications part about like what if is you know, that would go on for a number of sentences, but what you distilled my many words down into highlights in the report, look, this is a change in the structure. It works like this. It's going to work like this now. That captures it.
And so I'm thinking that we take this and turn it into a couple of sentences and make it a paragraph of its own, roughly somewhere in this section is how I would suggest we respond to this.
I may be wrong, but I think the ordinance doesn't just say appoint, it says nominate. And if you're nominating to a board and you're the county manager, who are you nominating, who are you submitting that nomination to, other than the county commission? I think that's how Dave got appointed. It had to go through the county commission. Now, maybe there is no manager right now, but any place I've worked, if they have a county manager, boards and commissions, first of all, it's hard to get people to serve on them, but if you can, that list of nominees is submitted to the commission, be ultimately approved. And you can put whatever you want there, but I just think you need to clarify nominating is part of it.
I think you're aware, Phil, that's not the full meaning of nominate. Nominate is derived from the Latin nomine, which is to name. It doesn't mean appoint, it means to name. And in other contexts, in executive branches, executives name people to sit on boards and committees. They do not need the advice and consent of the Congress. The President of the United States names many people to serve on boards at his discretion, not with Congress. It doesn't mean nominate to Congress. You're confusing it with the Constitution and, you know, the advice and consent in the Constitution for nominating Supreme Court justices. This is nomine means to name. And so you're taking it in one direction. It is more apropos that you were to name somebody. So, I just point that out in terms of your definitions of the word. It is not the only one.
Do we have a motion to change this?
Did we want to go through the rest of the new comments?
I think
or do
at
you
this
wanna
point,
take it one
I think we're
piece at
gonna
a
need to
time?
take them one at a time.
Okay. Based on what I've heard here, I move that we develop a paragraph of a few sentences to incorporate this input.
Okay. Is there a second? Call for a vote. 5 people have voted for it, it passes. Next point.
I have another one.
We have less than 45 minutes, so let's move it on, not delay.
I will go with whatever I have to go with, Dave. I think trying to censure me and limit is not appropriate, so.
Due to be coming into this, that we had a 3-hour limit, you can deal with this.
How did I know
and
we have a
prioritize.
3-hour limit?
I didn't
Because
see
it was
that.
set for 5:30 to 8:30
On
On
what?
what?
on the agenda.
Okay, well, that's fine, and so we have time. No, my next one is, you did stipulate at the beginning of your document, and I'm not gonna go there, about all the parameters or all the ways that you compile the information. From inside the county, outside the county, research, that's all done fairly early in the report. And you did put in there about the public comments and the public hearing that had occurred. What I find lacking in the report is, like to Brian's point on the percentages of the people who spoke against it, the actual amount of people who talked, the emails that we received, just an accurate representation of what it is that we actually did receive during the public comment, the one in September, during the public hearing, the one in January, and the culmination of all of the public comments written. And it was stipulated in there, but in no way is it represented in the report.
That's correct. I guess my thought is that in making the report, we weren't attempting to summarize the minutes of our approximate year of meetings. So if you think that is something that is material and important to include, then we can.
It's a simple I think a simple sentence of between all of the information received, written emails, because you stipulated in the report, the emails, the public comments, the 2 public hearings or public forum that we had, the overwhelming response from the public, including, and you could put the numbers in, the people who were for, the people who were against, so nobody's left out, and stipulate that in there. And that's a 2-sentence thing, saying this is what we received. You don't have to go into what Brian did and explain the reasonings why. It's just an accurate representation of what happened and throughout the tenure of this commission and what the public has stipulated up until this point.
I think if you're going to do that, you're going to have to say 200 people objected and 130,000 voters haven't responded.
Whether they responded or not, Dave, Shh. Hold on.
What are you afraid of? Go ahead, Tamara.
Hey, guys, please, thank you. That is not a correct representation. We are representing, and what they stipulated in this report is that they had listened to all of this, compiled all of the information that we received. Anybody had an opportunity, as you have stipulated, over and over and over. If they wanted to come and talk, if they wanted to say something, they could send it in. If people wanted to do that, they could have had any opportunity, whether it was county employees or anybody in the public. But they stated in here about the public comment period, the public forum, and all the written emails, that they took those into consideration. Yet at no point in it, from all of that we received, this is all that we can deal with and put in there, that was not represented. Why was that not represented?
It's meaningless in the report.
It is not meaningless to
It
the
is.
report. That their responses,
They will be free to respond to the county commissioners when the county commissioners take this up.
So you will put opinion-based information that purposes to support your agenda in getting this pushed. But you're ignoring the people and what they did for hours and spoke about? That's exactly what you're doing.
We didn't ignore the people. We don't have that percentage in there, or the number, or vast majority,
It
whatever
was
word.
90 to 10. Brian
Whatever
did the
the
whole
number.
thing, yeah.
Well, we haven't validated it, but I'm assuming it's higher than 90 to 10. I'm assuming it's higher than 90 to 10. It's probably 99 to 10. 99, why one?
Or you could just
But-
say what is it,
but-
a
but
vast
again,
majority.
we did, when you made a statement that we didn't listen to the people. And that's not true, because this report has attempted to put the things in there that we heard from the public. Now, whether or not, whether or not putting in the number makes any difference, we've heard from the people. We'd have to go back and look at all the comments we got on the positive. We haven't told people it's gonna be in the report. It doesn't make a difference one way or the other, whether we put it in there or not. If you could put in there that we got input, and the input was not in support of it.
That's a simple sentence. and I
Yeah,
think that would be
but
accurate.
again, I think you're trying to do the opposite of what you're accusing us of trying.
Which is,
Trying to sell this a different way. We weren't trying to ignore the people.
okay, I retract that because you're correct.
Yeah.
You are correct in that
Yeah.
you did put stuff in there from them. I think that this is, and that was, I apologize
Yeah.
for that. However, I think it's just a simple statement to put in, it was a vast majority from all the public information received that were against this. If we're wanting to put a full report into to our county commissioners, it's a simple statement, it's an accurate statement, and it brings in everything that, that they talked about without having to go into detail. We don't have to know the numbers. It was a vast majority to what you
Yeah.
just said.
To
No, go ahead, Brian.
Dave's point about, certainly they're a cross-segment of the population that is vastly larger than the commenters, right? I mean, how many was 170,000 in population,
Whatever the number.
right? And we got about 255 comments, and something like 90, just over 90% or something were not in favor of the recommendation. And, I think there's a way to string those three things together with a sentence at the end that was like, let we the people decide, which is, look, we had public comment, we received comments, we broke it down into, what were the comments, what categories did they fall into? But in general, like over 90% were against. It is an interested segment of the population that commented. Obviously, not everybody in the county commented. That said, it was informative to the public, or it was informative to the process. And, it is, the recommendation is passed by this majority, it's, time for the people to decide, right? I mean, I'm just trying to walk through a sentence string that would lead to that, kind of at the end, where he said, let we the people decide, because it's I would consider a representative. I tried to say this in my remarks that evening. One presumes it's a representative portion of the population. It is not the entirety of the electorate that submitted comments. We understand, and this is what they broadly indicated, but we've done our best to take that into account, and now we pass it to the commissioners for what they're going to do and let the people decide. Something to that effect. I was just trying to piece together three different people's views into one consensus statement.
Well, and I guess my suggestion is that in the document, I think the place that this would best fit would be toward the end, or at the end of section 3, which is the description of the process that we followed as a study commission, if we were going to add something. So another couple of sentences structured somewhat along the lines that Brian and David have suggested. Seems like that would be the best place to insert it into the document.
Further discussion? Personally, I don't see that it gains anything, but let's call for a vote. Can someone structure this as a motion?
So moved to add in some so moved to add a representation sentence or verbiage to show the responses from the email and public comment in public forum.
Second. Brian, was that you?
Yeah.
Call for a vote to do that? I have 4 votes for, that then does not pass. No? Kristen, did you want to vote for that motion?
I want to vote against that motion.
Fine. We had 4 votes for it. That does not change, Senator. It
This
did
is-
not pass. Go
This
ahead, Phil.
report is an analysis of what we have done for 10 months for the commission to review. Pretty sure they're aware of what's been going on here. That issue aside, if you feel an absolute need to put something in about their objectives, then put the number in. There were
Well,
37 at
at
one
this point,
meeting.
she's just suggested it, and the motion has failed. So. Any further comments? Sorry, Brian?
I'd move to reconsider along the lines of what Phil Ward just suggested.
Okay, motion?
Second.
State the motion, I'm sorry.
To reconsider the vote.
Okay. Okay, so Brian has made a motion to reconsider, Kurt has approved it, call for a vote, reconsider. That passes, we will reconsider. Okay, let's go then. Do we have any argument to be made, or do we go straight to a vote? Your motion was to reconsider, well, that brings back a motion, and now I'm saying, is there a discussion of that motion, or do we vote on that?
I think we can probably just call for the vote.
Okay, who wants to, I'm sorry, go ahead, Phil.
Can someone read what the motion's going to say now, or what the wording is going to say?
We don't have the exact wording, but the intent.
Just put the number in.
The intent is to have a numerical representation of the public comment and public hearing input and the emails throughout the course of the process that we've followed, and to indicate how many were for and how many were against the changes.
Up through the time of writing of the report.
Yes.
As of writing of the report.
Well,
Up to the
Yeah,
time
we
of the
wouldn't be
report.
up to the time when we were,
Comments being
creating the
made now.
reports, yeah, so that it would cut off or the beginning of February, roughly.
Whatever.
Yeah,
Oh, hang on,
Wanna-
Nancy's got something to say.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify, any emails that were sent in from the public were already sent to the BOCC. When I forwarded them to you, I forwarded them to the BOCC as well. So they have seen and received all of those.
Right, but there's not any harm to include the counts of the for and against emails as well as the public comment and hearing sessions, I don't think.
We would have to do a public records request. When they were forwarded, I deleted them from the KCOFG email. So we would need to do a public records request to get those.
Okay, well, we can leave the emails out of it and just do the public comment and hearing session if that's,
well, why, I guess the question is, you want to put a number there, which may be hard to get. If we want to go and put that the vast majority.
no, I
of the-
think a number is better. I mean, because then, people may want to argue one or two, oh, no, there were 342, not 340. But I don't know if that
Okay, I don't,
is going to be
I
material.
just trying to make it easier.
I did put the record, in part of that presentation, I put
Yes,
the
I know.
record a table.
I plan to
If
use
you
that.
refer to that and then just cite to it and attach it as an attachment,
I'll refer to the minutes where it was included already.
Did that include, Brian, also the emails that we received from the
it was
beginning?
every single email that.
Okay, and
we
then,
received.
and then public comments, public hearing?
Both
Okay,
leading up to that public hearing as well as after that public hearing. Anything I received up to midnight before the public hearing
Okay.
was included.
Okay, so I'll just refer to that as the source, and it refers back to the minutes, which are part of the public record.
right.
Is that the end of discussion?
Who made a motion?
Did that answer your question?
Yep.
The motion had been made before. Brian wanted to reconsider the motion.
Right, we got
and
that one.
Kurt So we don't have a new motion being
Oh, you don't?
made.
Well,
Okay.
we do have a
We're
motion
reconsidering the
that
motion.
is in,
Got it, thank
I
you.
mean, Phil asked for details on what was going to be,
Right, which
what
isn't
is
a new
being
motion, it's
proposed.
just an explanation of the
Yeah.
motion.
Okay,
So-
good with that.
Okay?
So I
Call for a
think
vote?
now we can just vote on it, I believe.
Okay.
Okay.
Call for a vote. We have 5, the vote passes.
6.
Did we have 6? Brian, did you vote?
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't see your
David
hand up,
wasn't
I
there.
apologize.
And Phil voted.
Phil voted for it, yes.
Okay.
All right.
Other issues?
How's your electricity going?
Yeah, do you have anything else?
Okay.
Things from never here, you're ready for me.
Looks like no one else has anything else, so we've fallen to you, yes.
Okay, so my comments fall into something that I noted before, but, the context of what should be in the final report, the statute provides A, a complete description of the optional form of the county government proposed, and B, a comparison of the existing form and proposed form of county government. And I think it fails on both. This report is shy on both of those criteria. And I alluded to earlier that I don't think that it adequately describes the current form of government. I know there was omission of the other silos discussion, but also how the boards and commissions really function within our current form, I think is something that should be, in summary, described. We've touched on some of that already, but something that was part of the criteria for looking at and having a full report that meets with these criteria is, what is about the current form that's not adequate, right? And then also you're supposed to compare, contrast with what you're proposing. Something that I think didn't get sufficient attention and should is that, the notion of hiring somebody to fulfill the administrative function, right? Versus having a commission manager. Number one, I don't think those were adequately contrasted. To me, something that has remained a question throughout is, one, what duties will the commission manager actually have that he takes from, so to speak, the members of the Board of Commissioners? Some can't be delegated, others can. Which of them will go to him, besides just the budget officer, Dave? I know we've focused on that a lot, but besides just the budget officer, what are these other duties? We've always talked of it in terms of administrative, and point I made previously was we don't know exactly. Picking up that thread, though, and carrying it further, which is, why couldn't whatever it is that's going to come to a commission manager, why can't that be done within just hiring somebody who's an employee to be an administrator? What is it that's different? I mean, why do you have to get a commission manager in place that now is a permanent position within the county? You have to hire, even if you fire the person, you got to backfill that position, right? And if people decide we don't want that anymore, you got to wait 4 years. Why? Which of the functions that person is going to perform are ones that could otherwise be performed just by somebody you hired, and you don't have to change the government? We've never kind of laid that out. And if there are limitations in terms of what it is that person you would hire to do this under the existing form, like, well, they can't approve this or they can't approve that, and this commission manager is going to be able to do that. That to me seems objective. Oh, I see. If we hire the guy, maybe he can't sign off on, I don't know, the weekly check register or something like that. Whereas if we have a commission manager, maybe we can do that. I don't really know the answer. My best guess is that function doesn't change. The commission manager can't do that any much as somebody who's hired to do it. It always is the responsibility of the commissioners to every week go through that registry and sign off and say, yep, I agree these were funds spent appropriately. So it doesn't change, right? And there's an understanding what it is this commission manager, what his duties will be, and what it is in a hired situation where you get a commission manager. How do those relate? Does this commission manager gonna be able to do more? And why couldn't we just do it with somebody who's an employee doing that job as an administrator? So that I think is, in my view, a shortcoming, and it's not a matter of, gee, we're too deep into the details. We did bring this up about the need to understand of those 71 duties of the commissioners, which are delegable, right? We brought that up. We didn't really tease that out in this final report of, well, what are those duties this commission manager will do? And why couldn't we do that with what we have, just by hiring somebody? You know, I know the argument is, well, we had this guy before, he worked for a year on some specific tasks and it didn't work out and they got rid of him. Here, we're gonna be forced to have a guy who's, you know, his position will be backfilled if you fired him. To me, that doesn't really account for why you would just make this shift to this commission manager. I think the report should lay that out, so people, I think it's part of the rationale of the requirements in the statute that you examine kind of the pluses and minuses of the form you're proposing versus the form that you have. I don't think that was adequately done. So I'm going to stop with that comment just so you guys can focus on it.
You have pointed out that the statute says we have to compare the current form with the proposed form. The current form does not include a hired manager. So when we compare the current form with the proposed form, we are comparing the commissioners, the Board of County Commissioners doing the administrative work with having a county manager appointed by the Board of County Commissioners with the statutory authority delegated to him. As you know, the Board of County Commissioners cannot delegate their statutory authority to an employee. The only way that is delegated is through the statute. So if you hire somebody, and I'm getting into the weeds here a little, if you hire somebody, they don't have the authority to take on the administrative work. They can do some work and then they have to turn that over to the county commissioners and say, validate it. Here, vote for it, vote against it. With the statutory authority, the manager does not have to turn to the county commissioners. The county commissioners can, if they choose to overrule him, they can. Now, granted, they don't have the authority to overrule, but they have the authority to say, you have overstepped, we're going to replace you with someone else. And that is there.
So I think what you're saying is that
But the statutory requirement to compare and contrast the current form with the proposed form does not include the hired, appointed, if you want to call it, administrative assistant.
well, the current form, I think you're taking as, you know, with all the employees in it, but the current form includes the authorities that are in the current form, the way it's structured, which means you could hire somebody to do the administrative tasks. So I think you're parsing that very closely. The current form allows for you to hire someone to do it. It doesn't mean current form like, tell me what your employees are today. It means just the current structure, how it's structured. And so, you know, I differ with you on that point, Dave.
Yeah. You're moving beyond
yeah.
the current form. You're saying they have the authority to change the current form,
No,
Yes.
the current form allows them to hire somebody,
but they don't have that position.
right? But the current form allows it, and it's.
So we can't compare with theoretical options that they could have.
Yeah, I just differ with you. I think you can look at the current form and in evaluating it, say, what are the strengths and weaknesses? And one of the strengths is in that current form, you could hire somebody to do a lot of administrative tasks. Now let's compare it to what we're proposing, which is you get a commission manager. What are the functional differences here between the authorities that the employee in that role would have versus the authorities that person in the commission manager role would have? And I think understanding what those responsibilities are of the commission manager, once you got into that, you would be able to appreciate, like, well, are these ones that they just hand off and now he can just sign off on things on those particular matters? Or does it still have to go to the Board of Commissioners for validation and look at, well, wouldn't that be the same if we hired somebody under the existing form. You know, to me, I think that's what's missing is an assessment of that.
We agree to disagree on that. I don't believe that the statute requires options that are not in place. There are many options that are not in place. Further discussion? Do we have a motion?
You know, I would move that a comparative analysis be added, a brief comparative analysis that shows what are the duties of a commission manager that would be, you know, taken in that role, and whether within the existing form of government, those duties could be performed by hiring a commission manager. That's an option in this optional form. That would be my motion.
Have a second? Call for a vote. You know, all in favor? We have 4 in favor. Kristen, did you want to vote on this?
Yes, I do. I am not in favor.
The motion has failed. Other things? Any other points? Have we run out of subjects? Did we get through before 8:30?
He's scrolling through.
I'm just looking at some notes.
Okay.
No, I think I'll truncate my comments there. I think.
So,
Sorry.
Brian, I wanted to follow up. You had started by saying there were 2 aspects on which you felt the report was inadequate. We've talked about the comparative analysis portion, but you had also started by saying that you think the complete description aspect was lacking. Is that specifically in regard to how the boards and committees function as a citizen outreach portion of our governance structure? And should we address that aspect of the complete description? We've already decided the comparative table is not.
Well, my first comment was about the complete description. It wasn't complete in my mind about how the current form of government operates. It's not a complete description. And when you then get to the next part, which is comparatively, it doesn't do an adequate job of comparing with what we have. And so that's why I think on both points it fails.
I'm wondering if there's something we can do to address your first point, since the vote was not to address your second point.
You know, the first point being about a complete description of our government is a summary of just, beyond just what's in here, of just how this functions now as a, you know, democratic form of government in this form, which is the way that we reach out to the public. The way the public is involved is through boards and committees, okay? Those boards and committees formulate recommendations on policy, and it ushers up to the commissioners for their call. And that is how that works now. I don't think that that is adequately captured as an adequate description of our government. I know you wanted to not include the parts it says, we're not going to talk about all these other silos. I think, you know, I could live with that. I think they do interact, and I think that a complete description of our current form should acknowledge that these other silos, they do interact, but I get it's such a comprehensive thing that you'd really be devoting a lot of text to it. But I do think understanding how these commissioners operate, because this is their silo, and they do look to those boards and committees to do a lot of that yeoman's work, where the public's involved, coming in, letting their views be heard on things that subject matter, things that they're contemplating in recommending policy, and then that goes up to the commissioners to, you know, call yay or nay on. And I just think that's missing in our current form.
No, I think that's good. I think it complements what we talked about earlier about incorporating some sort of description of the full executive authority of the manager role, and I think it complements that because it provides the background for that other portion. That's why I wanted to make sure that we captured that, and so I'll move that we amend the description of the current form to incorporate something along the lines of what Brian was describing. I don't know how exactly, but
It's just a general
yeah, something along those lines.
summary of how it works. It's within the silo that you're describing.
Do we have a second?
About advisory boards.
The boards and commissions.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
boards and
exactly.
committees, yeah.
As they function in the current form, and that provides the basis for what we described earlier, that we would talk about the full executive authority of the manager.
So
Shifting that.
if we do that in here, in the existing form, is it also necessary to contrast it later on?
I think we've already agreed that we want to put something
Right,
in
yeah.
that the manager, that
Right.
shifts with the
Yeah.
manager. So I think we're covered
Okay, I
in the
see.
contrast.
This is how it, okay, got it.
But this provides the background for that contrast.
Okay.
Okay, I believe we had a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Okay. Call for a vote?
I'm okay with
Brian,
that.
are you gonna vote?
Yeah, vote.
Okay, we have 5 to vote for that.
Dave?
Well, we have 5.
You wanna ask Kristen?
Kristen? How do you vote on that motion?
I am not in support.
Hey, Brian, do you actually have in your notes, what you, a sentence on that?
No.
Okay, so we'll have to come up with a sentence. Okay.
Yeah, we've got a couple of places we've got to come up with wording.
Any further issues? We have about 10 minutes left. So if there is something, let's be succinct.
I don't, actually. I think that between hearing Bryant's comments tonight, Tamara's comments, yours and Phil's, those kind of capture my comments. They overlap in many ways. So we did work through those, and then these two bigger picture ones were ones that I wanted to bring up. So I don't have any more comments.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to item 10, items for the April 6th meeting. We will have a new version of the report. Will we be able to have it by Wednesday, April 6th?
I'll work with David and Kristen to get us something that we can have, and along with a red line or changes summary.
Okay. In that case, on April 6th, we will have a draft final report presented to the committee. We will then have open discussion of that draft final report and a vote to accept or reject that report. Is there anything that we need to bring in other than that? Phil?
I want to restate, first of all, I think the first report was done properly through an open meeting and properly voted upon. But my concern is that as more and more changes are brought in, we're almost getting back to trying to rewrite what we approved with our final vote, that we want a council manager form of government. And I just want to make sure that whatever comments are generated to finalize this draft, stick with what was the intent of what was done for the prior 10 months. And we aren't like going into new ground to make it more authoritative than it really is.
I agree with you,
I haven't
Phil. I
heard
don't
anything.
believe there was any change mentioned to change the recommendation or anything along that line. I believe that still stands. All we're talking about is a little bit of explanation of authority, scope of authority, current form.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything
Compare
that
and
would change
contrast
the
that.
substance of the
I
recommendation.
tend to agree. We have another day to go.
If that is the case,
Move to adjourn.
we move to adjourn. Second, vote. I think that we've got that. We are adjourned. Thank you, Kristen.